Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 28, been with my now wife for 6 years, and we finally decided to tie the knot last spring. We're both pretty laid-back people, but we had one rule for our wedding that we made crystal clear to everyone: absolutely no white for anyone except the bride. We sent out detailed dress code information with the invitation stating that guests should wear neutral colors or jewel tones, keeping it simple, classy, and respectful. My aunt has always been the type of person who thinks rules don't apply to her. She's my dad's sister, and she's been causing drama at family events since I was a kid. She once showed up to my cousin's graduation party in a dress more expensive than what my cousin wore just because she wanted to show everyone how successful she was. She has this need to be the center of attention at every gathering, no matter whose special day it is. When we were planning the wedding, my dad warned me that she might try something. He knows his sister better than anyone, and he's had to deal with her antics for 50 plus years. I thought maybe this time would be different since it was my wedding, but I should have listened to him. The morning of the wedding, everything was going perfectly. My wife looked absolutely stunning in her dress, the venue was decorated beautifully, and all our friends and family were arriving on time. I was greeting guests at the entrance when I saw my aunt walking up the path. She was wearing a full-length white dress, not cream, not off-white with a pattern, not ivory, pure, bridal white. The kind of white that screams, "Look at me," from across the room. It was elegant and expensive looking, which somehow made it even worse. I walked over to her, trying to keep my voice calm. I told her I was glad she made it, but reminded her that we had talked about the dress code and that white was really just for the bride today. She dismissed my concern completely, calling the dress this old thing and saying she looked great in white. Then she asked smugly if my wife would really mind, referring to her like she wasn't even worth considering. I explained that it actually was a problem since we had specifically asked everyone not to wear white. She got defensive and told me not to be so dramatic, claiming it was just a color. Then she admitted she had bought this dress specifically for today. That last part really got to me. She bought a white dress specifically for my wedding, knowing full well what she was doing. This wasn't some accident or oversight, this was deliberate. Other guests started to notice and whisper among themselves. My best man came over and gave me a look that said, "What do you want me to do?" But before I could figure out how to handle this without causing a scene, my wife appeared beside me. My wife asked if everything was okay. My aunt immediately started gushing about how lovely the bride looked, then made a point of mentioning how nice she looked in white too. My wife looked at my aunt's dress, then at me, then back at my aunt. She squeezed my hand, our signal that meant, "Let me handle this." She simply thanked my aunt for looking lovely and for coming to celebrate with us. My aunt took this approval and said she knew the bride wouldn't mind at all. My wife just smiled and didn't say another word, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She's always been smarter than me when it comes to dealing with difficult people. The ceremony went ahead planned, though I kept noticing people staring at my aunt throughout the vows. She had positioned herself in the front row where she'd be visible in all the photos, and she kept adjusting her dress and hair like she was posing for a magazine shoot. After the ceremony during the cocktail hour, my wife pulled me aside. She told me she had an idea about my aunt's seating arrangement. When I asked what she meant, she just told me to trust her on this one. Originally, we had placed my aunt at table 3, which was right up front with the rest of the close family. It was a prime spot with a perfect view of the head table and the dance floor. But my wife had quietly asked our wedding coordinator to make a change. When guests started finding their seats for dinner, my aunt went to table 3 and couldn't find her place card. She told our wedding coordinator that she thought there was a mistake because she was supposed to be at this table. The coordinator asked for her name and my aunt identified herself, the groom's aunt. After checking the list, the coordinator directed her to table 12. Table 12 was positioned directly in front of the DJ's massive subwoofer and right next to table 13, which was the kids' table. We're talking about 8 children between the ages of 4 and 10, all hopped up on wedding cake and excitement. My aunt looked confused, walked to the back of the reception hall. The music was noticeably louder back there, and the kids were already getting restless and noisy during the first course. About halfway through dinner, she got up and walked over to our head table. The music was between songs, so everyone could hear her clearly. She asked why her seat had changed, explaining that she was supposed to be up front with the family. I smiled at her, using the same tone she'd used on me earlier. I told her that we figured since she wanted extra attention today, she'd want to be center stage. She asked what that was supposed to mean. I explained that she had worn white to my wedding, even though we specifically asked her not to, and since she wanted to stand out, we made sure she got the best seat for that. She realized that we knew exactly what she had done and that there would be results. Several other family members had heard the exchange, and they were all looking at her with disapproving expressions. She protested that this was ridiculous and that she was family. My wife calmly replied that family should respect the bride and groom's wishes on their wedding day. My aunt stood there for a moment, clearly trying to think of a comeback, but nothing came. She walked back to table 12, but the damage was done. The kids at the next table had gotten even louder during the main course, and the bass from the speakers was making her wine glass vibrate on the table. She lasted about another hour before she came over one last time. She announced that she was leaving because the treatment was unacceptable. I simply said I was sorry to see her go and thanked her for coming. And that was it. She grabbed her purse and left without saying goodbye to anyone else. My dad came over a few minutes later. He mentioned that he saw her leave and asked if everything was okay. I told him everything was perfect now. When we got our wedding photos back, my aunt wasn't visible in any of the important shots. The photographer had naturally focused on the family tables up front during the reception, and table 12 was completely out of frame. All those posed pictures she thought she was going to be featured in, she's nowhere to be found. Our videographer captured the ceremony from angles that somehow managed to avoid including her in any of the key moments. It's like she was never there at all, which is exactly how we wanted it. A few weeks after the wedding, my aunt called my dad to complain about how she was treated. She claimed we embarrassed her in front of the whole family and that she was just trying to look nice for our special day. My dad told her that if she wanted to be treated with respect, she should try showing some first. She hasn't spoken to us since, which honestly has made family gatherings much more peaceful. My wife and I look back on our wedding day perfectly, and we have the photos to prove it. Photos with all the people who actually mattered to us, wearing appropriate colors and celebrating our love instead of trying to steal the spotlight. I work as a warehouse supervisor at a distribution center, which means I'm on my feet all day dealing with inventory and managing shipments. My wife works part-time at a dental office while taking care of our 2 kids. Money's always tight, so we usually do our shopping once a week at the local mall where we can hit multiple stores and grab lunch at the food court without breaking the bank. This particular Saturday started like any other shopping trip. We had our 4-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter with us, along with our usual list of necessities. The mall was packed for a weekend, but we managed to find a decent parking spot near the main entrance after circling around for about 10 minutes. After spending nearly 2 hours shopping for clothes for the kids and picking up some household items, we were finally heading back to our car. Both kids were getting cranky and tired, and my wife was juggling shopping bags while I carried our daughter, who was starting to fuss. We reached our car and I started the usual routine of getting the kids buckled into their car seats. My son was being his typical chatty self, and when I was helping him into his booster seat, he started asking about lunch plans. He wanted pizza with pepperoni and wondered if we could get ice cream after. I told him maybe and asked if he had fun at the toy store while I made sure his seatbelt was properly adjusted. I was focused on getting him settled when I heard some honking behind me. I didn't think much of it at first since parking lots are always noisy with cars coming and going. My son kept chatting about the race cars he saw and asking if we could go back to the toy store. The honking continued and I looked back to see a woman in a silver sedan sitting right behind our car with her turn signal on. She had her window down and was looking at us while repeatedly pressing her horn. My wife finished loading our shopping bags in the trunk and came around to tell me that the lady probably wanted our parking spot since her blinker had been on since we got there. I looked back at the woman again. She was probably in her 50s, wearing sunglasses, and had this impatient scowl on her face. She honked again, longer this time. I told my wife that we were almost done and kept working on getting our daughter situated in her car seat. She was getting fussy and didn't want to sit down, fighting me when I tried to get her buckled in. The honking was getting more frequent now. Every few seconds, this woman would lay on her horn like we were taking forever on purpose. My wife commented that the lady was really getting impatient back there. I said tough, we were going fast. I finally got our daughter buckled in and closed the back door. The whole process had taken maybe 3 or 4 minutes, which is pretty standard when you're dealing with 2 small kids. But this lady was acting like we'd been taking hours. When I walked around to get in the driver's seat, she honked again, and I could see her throwing her hands up in frustration. I said I was just going to leave and got in the car. I put it in reverse, but when I started backing out, I realized the woman had pulled so close to the back of our car that I couldn't actually move. There was maybe 6 inches between her front bumper and our rear bumper. I tried backing out slowly, but she crept forward even more, maintaining that tiny gap. My wife asked if I could get out, and I told her no, the lady was literally blocking me in. I tried again, but every time I moved backward, she moved forward. It was like some weird game where she wanted the spot but wouldn't let me leave to give it to her. The honking continued. Now she was really laying on it, holding the horn for several seconds at a time. My wife said this was ridiculous. I told her that at this point the woman could have driven around the lot and found another spot. If she didn't want to let me out, I'd make sure she had to find another spot. I pulled the car back into the parking space and put it in park. The honking stopped immediately and I could see the confusion on her face through my rearview mirror. I told my wife I was going back into the mall. She asked what I was doing, and I told her to watch. I got out of the car and started walking toward the mall entrance. I could hear her car door slam behind me, and she started calling after me to get my attention. I turned around to see her speed walking toward me. She was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'4", with bleached blonde hair and way too much makeup for a Saturday afternoon shopping trip. She demanded to know what I thought I was doing. I told her I forgot something in the store. She said I couldn't just leave my car there because she'd been waiting for that spot. I explained that she wouldn't let me back out, so I figured I'd give her more time to find another spot. She said that wasn't how this worked and that I was leaving. I asked if I was really leaving because it seemed like she didn't want me to leave since she was blocking my car and all. She was getting that entitled tone that people get when they think the world revolves around them. She said she had every right to wait for that spot because she was there first. I agreed that she had that right and I had every right to change my mind about leaving. She said this was completely unreasonable and threatened to call mall security. I told her to go ahead and that I was sure they'd be very interested to hear how she blocked someone from leaving a parking spot. She stood there sputtering for a moment, clearly not used to people not giving in to her demands. She finally said fine, but that this was completely unfair. She walked back to her car and I watched when she got in and slammed the door. Instead of waiting to see what I'd do next, she threw her car in reverse and sped off, tires squealing slightly when she drove away, looking for another spot. I waited about 30 seconds to make sure she was really gone, then walked back to our car. My wife said that was amazing. I told her that sometimes you have to fight petty with petty. My son asked why that lady was so mad. I explained that some people don't like to wait. We drove out of the parking lot and headed home for lunch. When we passed the other side of the lot, I saw her silver sedan circling around, still looking for a spot. The mall was busy enough that all the good spots near the entrance were taken, so she probably ended up parking much farther away than she would have if she'd just been patient in the first place. My wife and I had a good laugh about it over lunch. I work as a parking enforcement officer for the city. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and I've seen pretty much everything when it comes to people's reactions to getting tickets. Most people are annoyed but accept it. Some argue a bit. But what happened last Tuesday was something I never expected. My dad was a cop for 30 years before he retired, and I looked up to him. The plan was to work as a parking enforcement officer while I finished my criminal justice degree, then apply to the police academy. It's good experience dealing with the public, and it teaches you to stay calm under pressure. The downtown area where I work has strict parking rules because of all the businesses and limited spaces. There's a popular shopping district with expensive boutiques and restaurants, and people are always trying to park longer than allowed or in spots they shouldn't. The meters are clearly marked, and there are signs everywhere about the time limits. That Tuesday started like any other day. I was walking my usual route around 10 in the morning when I spotted a bright red luxury car parked in a 15-minute loading zone. It had been there when I passed by an hour earlier, so I knew it was way over the limit. The car was blocking the loading zone that delivery trucks needed to use. I could see a delivery driver having to park illegally down the street because this car was taking up the designated spot. I walked over and started writing the ticket. The car was a brand new model, probably cost more than I make in 2 years. I was just finishing up the paperwork when I heard the heels clicking rapidly on the sidewalk behind me. A woman in her 40s appeared behind me. She was carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. She demanded to know what I thought I was doing. I turned around and explained that I was writing her a parking ticket because her vehicle had been parked in a loading zone for over an hour. She insisted that was ridiculous and claimed she had only been shopping for a few minutes. I told her that I had passed by this vehicle over an hour ago and it had been there the entire time. I explained that this was a loading zone for delivery vehicles only. She then asked if I knew who she was and bragged that her husband was a very important businessman in the city. I've heard this line countless times. People think name dropping will get them out of tickets. I explained that the parking regulations apply to everyone equally. I told her that the fine was $60 and she could contest it if she felt it was issued in error. She was outraged about the $60 fine and called it highway robbery. She snatched the ticket from my hand and tore it in half, throwing the pieces on the ground. She demanded to know what I was going to do about it now. I explained that destroying the ticket didn't make it go away because the citation was already in the system. I told her she would need to pay the fine or appear in court. She declared that she wasn't paying anything and that I couldn't make her. I told her that if she didn't pay, additional penalties would be added and eventually her license could be suspended. This seemed to make her even angrier. She called me a little nobody and asked if I thought I could threaten her. She threatened to have my job and said she would call the mayor. I told her she had every right to file a complaint and then asked her to move her vehicle from the loading zone. She refused to move anywhere until I tore up that ticket. I explained that I couldn't do that because the violation had been documented. At this point, other people on the street were starting to stare. Karen was practically screaming, and I was trying to keep the situation calm. She called me a power-hungry little worm and accused me of getting off on ruining people's days. I asked her to calm down and move her vehicle. She told me not to tell her to calm down and claimed she knew her rights. She stepped closer to me, getting right in my face. I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with what seemed like alcohol, even though it was only 10 in the morning. She threatened that I was going to regret messing with her. I told her I needed her to step back and lower her voice. Instead of stepping back, she moved even closer. I was starting to feel genuinely threatened. In my training, they taught us to call for backup if situations escalated beyond our control. I warned her that I was going to have to call for assistance if she didn't calm down. She told me to call whoever I wanted because they couldn't do anything to her. I reached for my radio to call for a police officer, and that's when things went from bad to worse. When I brought the radio up to speak, Karen completely lost it. She told me not to dare call anyone. She lunged forward and grabbed my radio, trying to rip it out of my hand. We struggled for a moment, and I managed to keep hold of it. I told her she needed to let go and step away right now. She challenged me to make her. What happened next shocked everyone watching, including me. Karen pulled back and then slammed her forehead directly into my face. The headbutt caught me right in the nose and I stumbled backward, blood immediately starting to flow. The pain was instant and intense. I could taste blood in my mouth and my eyes started watering. Several people on the street gasped and started pulling out their phones. One bystander shouted in shock, asking if she had just headbutted me. Another person yelled for someone to call the police. I held my nose, trying to stop the bleeding, while Karen stood there looking shocked at what she had just done. For a moment, she seemed to realize she had crossed a serious line. She stammered that she didn't mean to do it. I told her she had just assaulted a city employee and ordered her not to move. I managed to get on my radio despite the blood and pain and called for immediate police backup, explaining that I had been assaulted by a citizen. Within minutes, 2 police cars arrived, with sirens blaring. The officers quickly assessed the situation, with several witnesses eagerly telling them what they had seen. One officer asked if I was all right and if I needed medical attention. I told him I thought my nose might be broken and explained that she had headbutted me after I wrote her a parking ticket. The officers looked at Karen, who was now trying to act innocent. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding and that I had been harassing her. A witness spoke up and said that wasn't what happened at all. They explained that she had destroyed the ticket, screamed at me, then headbutted me when I called for help. Another witness mentioned they had gotten the whole thing on video. Karen went pale when she heard about the video evidence. The officer told her that she was under arrest for assault on a city employee. She protested that they couldn't arrest her and called it ridiculous. She demanded to speak to their supervisor. The officer told her she would have plenty of time to talk to people at the station and ordered her to turn around and put her hands behind her back. She called it harassment and claimed she was being persecuted. Karen continued screaming about how unfair everything was and demanding to speak to various officials. The officers were professional but firm. The paramedics arrived and confirmed that my nose was indeed broken. They took me to the emergency room, where I spent the next 4 hours getting x-rays and having my nose reset. It was painful and embarrassing, but I was lucky it wasn't worse. Over the next few weeks, I had to deal with paperwork, give statements, and eventually testify in court. Karen had hired an expensive lawyer who tried to claim she was acting in self-defense, but the witness testimony and video evidence made it clear what really happened. The judge wasn't impressed with Karen's behavior or her lawyer's excuses. He told her that her actions were completely unacceptable and that assaulting a city employee doing their job was a serious crime. Karen tried to explain that she was having a bad day and had just reacted poorly. The judge responded that having a bad day didn't give her the right to headbutt someone over a parking ticket. In the end, Karen was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, along with a hefty fine and community service. Her expensive car was also impounded for the unpaid parking tickets that had accumulated. Apparently, this wasn't her first run-in with parking enforcement. I worked the day shift at a local grocery store, stocking shelves, and dealing with customers from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. My husband works the evening shift at a manufacturing plant, usually leaving around 3 p.m. and not getting home until around 2 a.m. This schedule has worked for us for the past 3 years since we got married. It helps us save money on childcare since we don't have kids yet, and honestly, we both prefer having some alone time. Being alone in our apartment at night used to really freak me out. We live in a decent neighborhood, but our building is old and makes weird sounds. The pipes clank, the refrigerator hums loudly, and our 2 cats love to knock things over when they're playing. For the first year, every little noise would send me into panic mode. I'd pause whatever I was watching on TV, tiptoe to the bedroom door, and listen carefully to figure out what made the sound. Most of the time, it was nothing serious. Maybe one of the cats knocked over their water bowl, or the ice maker in the freezer decided to dump a fresh batch of cubes. But I got tired of constantly jumping up to investigate every bump and thump. It was exhausting and was ruining my ability to relax after work. So about 2 years ago, I started locking the bedroom door when my husband left for work. That way, if I heard something weird, I could just tell myself it was the cats or an appliance. If it was something more serious, like someone breaking in, I have a locked door between me and whatever was happening. It made me feel safer and helped me actually enjoy my evenings instead of being on edge all the time. My routine was simple. When my husband left for work, I'd lock the bedroom door. When I was ready to go to sleep around 11 p.m., I'd unlock it so he could get in when he came home. He knew about this system and had never had a problem with it before. Last night started like any other. I got home from work around 2:30 p.m., ate some lunch, and relaxed for a bit before my husband left for his shift. He kissed me goodbye around 3 p.m. like always, and I locked the bedroom door once I heard his car pull out of our parking spot. I spent the evening watching a show I'd been binge watching on Netflix. One of our cats, Whiskers, had curled up on my lap, and I had the air conditioner running because it was pretty warm. The TV volume was up a bit higher than usual because the air conditioner was being noisy. Around 10 p.m., I heard the front door open. This was weird because my husband never came home before midnight, let alone 10 p.m., but I didn't think much of it at first. Sometimes his supervisor would cut people early if production was slow. I figured he'd come to the bedroom door and knock or call out to let me know he was home early. Instead, I heard footsteps in the hallway and then someone trying to turn the bedroom door handle. When it didn't open, whoever it was started jiggling it more aggressively. My husband yelled angrily from the other side of the door, demanding to know why the door was locked. I quickly paused the TV and gently moved Whiskers off my lap. It took me maybe 10 seconds to get up and walk to the door. I called out that he was home early and asked him to hold on while I unlocked the door. I turned the lock and opened it. My husband was standing there with this angry expression I'd never seen before. He immediately started questioning me about why the door was locked and what I was hiding in the room. I told him I wasn't hiding anything and reminded him that I always lock the door when he's at work. I explained that I didn't hear him come in because the TV and air conditioner were on. He called my explanation complete nonsense and accused me of hearing him come in but locking the door because I was doing something I didn't want him to see. I was genuinely confused at this point. He knew about my door locking routine and we'd talked about it before. I tried to explain again that I've been locking the door for 2 years when he's at work and that he knew this. He shot back that if I wasn't hiding anything, I would have unlocked it the second I heard him come in. But I didn't. I made him stand out there and wait. I repeated that I literally didn't hear him come in and that I always come out to say hi when I hear him get home. He then accused me of lying and claimed I was standing there for at least 5 minutes before opening the door. I told him it was maybe 10 seconds because I had to pause the TV and move the cat off my lap. He kept insisting I was lying and demanded to know what I was doing in the room that I didn't want him to see. Then he asked the question that made my blood run cold. He wanted to know if I was cheating on him. We've been together for 5 years, married for 3. I'd never given him any reason to think I was unfaithful. I asked if he was serious and sarcastically wondered who I could possibly be cheating with, the cats. I told him I'd been home alone watching Netflix like I do every night. He told me not to get smart with him and claimed he knew what he knew. He said doors don't just lock themselves. I tried explaining again that the door was locked because I lock it every night when he's at work. I reminded him this wasn't new and that we talked about it before. I told him I do it because it makes me feel safer when I'm alone. He dismissed this as a convenient excuse and said if I was really just worried about safety, I'd unlock it the second I heard him come home. I raised my voice and repeated that I didn't hear him come home. He told me to keep my voice down because the neighbors would hear me. I shot back asking if he was now worried about the neighbors when he was the one accusing me of cheating because I didn't open a door fast enough. He walked past me into the bedroom and started looking around like he was searching for evidence of something. He checked under the bed, opened the closet, and even looked behind the curtains. He demanded to know where he was. I asked him who he was talking about and insisted there was nobody here but me and the cats. He was convinced someone was in the room with me and that's why the door was locked and why I took so long to open it. At this point, I was getting really angry. I told him I was done with the conversation and that he was being ridiculous. I said he was making me feel like a criminal in my own home. He said he wasn't done talking about it and that I owed him an explanation. I told him I didn't owe him anything. I said I told him the truth and if he didn't want to believe it, that was his problem, not mine. I walked over to the bed and picked up my phone. I opened the Netflix app and showed him the screen. I pointed out that it showed I'd been watching the same episode for the past hour and a half. I showed him the timestamp of when I paused it and explained that was exactly when he started jiggling the door handle. He looked at the phone, and I could see the anger in his face start to fade a little. But he still insisted that didn't prove anything, and that I could have been doing something else with Netflix just running in the background. I said he was unbelievable and walked to the dresser where I keep a small notebook. I picked it up and told him he wanted more proof. I showed him my daily planner and pointed to today's entry. It said I worked from 6 to 2, would go to the grocery store after, be home by 3, and plan to watch Netflix and chill with the cats. I told him I wrote this yesterday. He suggested I could have written that tonight to cover my tracks. I asked him sarcastically if I had a time machine and told him to look at the pen marks. They were the same color as yesterday's entry because I used the same pen. He was starting to look less sure of himself, but he wasn't ready to admit he was wrong. He asked why I didn't text him when I got home to let him know I was here safely. I told him I text him that every single day and he never responds because he's working. I suggested he check his phone. He pulled it out and scrolled through our messages. Sure enough, there was my daily text from 3:15 p.m. saying I was home safe. He said okay, but that still didn't explain why I didn't hear him come in. I walked over to the air conditioner and turned it off, then turned the TV volume down to normal. I told him to come with me. I led him to the front door and opened it, then closed it normally. I asked if he heard that and he said yes. I told him to wait there and went back to the bedroom. I turned the air conditioner back on high and turned the TV volume up to where it was before. Then I called out and told him to close the door like he did when he came home. I heard the door close, but it was much quieter than when we were both standing right next to it. When he came back to the bedroom, he looked embarrassed. He admitted he owed me an apology, though he said he guessed he did. I repeated his words back to him questioningly. He said he was sorry and that he overreacted. He explained that when he couldn't get in, he started thinking all sorts of crazy things. I asked what crazy things and pointed out that in 5 years, I'd never given him a reason not to trust me. He agreed I was right and said he didn't know why he jumped to that conclusion. I told him that yes, he did know. I said he came home stressed from work, and instead of thinking logically, he decided to blame me for something that wasn't even a problem. The next morning I was getting ready for work when my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law calling to check on me. She said her son had called her the night before and told her about our fight. She wanted to make sure I was okay. I asked what exactly he had told her. She explained that he said I locked him out of the bedroom and wouldn't let him in because I was hiding something from him. Even after I'd proven my innocence and he'd apologized, he was still telling people his version of the story. I told her that wasn't what happened at all. I explained that I was in the bedroom with the door locked, like I do every night when he's at work. He came home early and I didn't hear him because the TV and air conditioner were on. It took me 10 seconds to get up and unlock the door. She said that wasn't what he told her. According to him, I made him wait outside for 10 minutes and acted suspicious when I finally let him in. I told her he was lying and said I was done defending myself to people who had already made up their minds. I hung up and immediately called my own mother. I told my mom I needed to stay with her for a few days. When she asked what was wrong, I told her the whole story. By the time I finished, she was furious and said she was coming to get me right away. When my husband got home that evening, I was gone. I'd left a note explaining that I was staying with my mother until he was ready to have an honest conversation about what really happened and why he felt the need to lie to his family about it. He called me later that night and told me to come home because we needed to talk. I said I was listening. He said he talked to his mom again and told her the truth about what happened. I asked what truth that was. He admitted that he overreacted and accused me of things I didn't do. He said I wasn't hiding anything and he was wrong to think I was. I waited for him to continue. He apologized for lying to his family about what happened. He said he was embarrassed that he acted like such an idiot, so he made it sound like I was the one who did something wrong. I asked if he threw me under the bus to make himself look better. He admitted that yeah, he did, and that it was really awful of him. I told him it was more than awful. It was cruel. I said he made me look like a liar and a cheater to his family. He agreed and promised he'd call everyone he talked to and tell them the real story. I told him he better. I also said that from now on, When he has a problem with me, he talks to me about it. He doesn't get to run to his family and make up stories to make me look bad. He kept his word. He called his mother, his sister, and his best friend to tell them the truth. But the damage was already done. Now I lock the bedroom door whether he's home or not. I used to work as a field technician for a major point-of-sale company. Our biggest client was Walmart, which meant I spent most of my days bouncing between different stores, fixing cash registers, self-checkout machines, and back-office computer equipment. The pay was decent and I liked the variety of going to different locations, but there was one major problem that made my job way more stressful than it needed to be. At first, I made the mistake of wearing my company's standard uniform, a blue polo shirt with khaki pants. Big mistake. Customers would see me and assume I worked for Walmart. Even after I switched to wearing all black clothes to avoid confusion, it didn't help much. People would spot my work lanyard hanging around my neck or notice the small company logo on my shirt and still think I was a Walmart employee. No matter how many times I explained I didn't work there, some customers just wouldn't listen. I had hundreds of these encounters over the years, but there are three that really stick out in my memory. The first incident happened on a Thursday evening. I had just finished replacing some network equipment as a back office and was walking through the store to leave when I spotted my friend from a previous job. We hadn't seen each other in months, so we stopped to catch up near the clothing section. We were chatting about how my new job was going and catching up on old times when I noticed this woman hovering nearby, just staring at us. She kept inching closer and closer until she was basically standing right next to us, clearly waiting for something. My friend finally asked the woman if she needed help with something. The woman pointed directly at me and said she needed to get into a dressing room. I was wearing all black, black shirt, black pants. Clearly not a Walmart uniform. I told her plainly that I didn't work there. She laughed like I was joking and repeated that they really did need to get into a dressing room. I said it again more seriously, telling her to go find an actual Walmart employee. That's when she completely lost it. She started cursing at me and telling me to do my job. The whole time I'm thinking, what job? I literally just told you I don't work here. I raised my voice and told her for the third time that I didn't work for Walmart. She kept going on about how ridiculous it was that employees didn't want to work anymore. My friend had been watching this whole thing unfold and finally jumped in. She told the woman that I had said 3 times that I didn't work there and asked if she was having a stroke since she couldn't understand plain English. But this woman was still convinced I was just being lazy. She called me a few choice names and stormed off, saying she was going to find a manager to report me. I called out after her not to get mad at me because she was too dumb to see my shirt didn't say Walmart, and I had told her 3 times I didn't work there. I'm willing to bet she told all her friends later about how some Walmart employee refused to help her and was rude about it. The second incident was even more frustrating because it started before the woman even talked to me. I was walking through the electronics section when I heard someone behind me tell her companion that there was someone they could ask for help. I heard footsteps getting closer and someone saying, "Excuse me," repeatedly, but I just kept walking. I wasn't being rude, I didn't think they were talking to me, since I obviously didn't work there. Finally, this woman ran up and got in front of me to block my path. She angrily told me that they had been trying to get my attention and I kept ignoring them and that they needed help. I explained that I didn't work there. She pointed at my shirt and sarcastically asked if the Walmart logo on my shirt didn't mean anything. I looked down at my shirt and pointed to the small company logo on the chest, asking her if that really looked like it said Walmart. She squinted at it for a few seconds, and I could see the exact moment it hit her that she had made a mistake. She quietly said, "Oh," and turned around and walked away without another word. I called out after her, "That's right, don't apologize." The third incident happened during the Christmas shopping season at one of the warehouse club stores. I was working on one of their newer self-checkout machines that had been acting up. The whole area was roped off with yellow caution tape, and I had put up multiple register closed signs while I worked on reinstalling the software. The store was packed with holiday shoppers, and all the other checkout lines were long. I was focused on my work when I started hearing someone yelling in the background. At first, I tuned it out since retail stores are always noisy, but the yelling kept getting louder and more persistent. Someone kept shouting, asking if I was going to open up and saying, "Hey," over and over. Another customer who was waiting in a nearby line walked over to me and told me he thought she was yelling at me. I looked up from the computer screen and saw this woman standing by the rope, clearly frustrated. I explained that I didn't work there and was just repairing the unit. She completely exploded, screaming profanity at me and saying I could have said something earlier while she was making a fool of herself yelling at me. I replied that it wasn't my fault. She kept going with the profanity until another customer in line told her to shut up and calm down. That's when the guy who had originally come over to let me know someone was yelling made the situation even better by loudly wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Everyone in the area started laughing except for the woman who had been yelling. She grabbed her cart and stomped off to find another checkout line. These are just 3 examples, but I probably have a few hundred similar stories from my time doing that job. The most ridiculous situations were when I'd have a cash register completely taken apart, with parts spread out on the conveyor belt, multiple "this line is closed" signs posted, and customers would still walk up and start putting their items on the belt expecting to be checked out. I learned to stop being polite and telling customers that the register was closed because somehow I still get blamed for letting them put their stuff down in the first place, even though they had ignored all the obvious signs that the register wasn't working. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.